Welcome to Growing Your Firm, brought to you by Jetpack Workflow. We're here to help firms unlock the secrets to help you reach your goals faster. And now, here's your host, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow, David Cristello.
Hey everybody, David Cristello here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow and host of Growing Your Firm podcast. Today we have a returning guest. It's Nayo Carter-Gray. She makes accounting a little less taxing, and her goal as the owner and founder of First Step Accounting LLC is to do just that. Nayo is an enrolled agent, a QuickBooks Online Advanced Certified Pro Advisor, a Gusto Ambassador, one of HubDoc's top 50 cloud accountants, former Intuit Accounting Council member, top 50 women in accounting, one of Forbes' top 100 tax Twitter accounts. Is there a list you haven't been on, Nayo? I don't know. We'll find one here eventually. She's also the founder, when she's not making all these lists and running a great firm, she's also the founder of Taking Your Firm Virtual Summit. Nayo, we got to get involved somehow. I know we'll talk offline to figure that out. I just love the event you're putting on. But first, let's just say welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much, David, for having me.
Yes. Yeah. Excited to dive on. We were talking before I hit record, what do we talk about? What do we talk about? There's automation, there's technology. And I was like, Nayo, you have this really cool elephant behind you for people watching. There's an elephant, it's a gray elephant in her bookshelf. And by the way, you should check it out on YouTube because she has a really cool background, great setup, lights, everything amazing. It looks like a deconstructed iPhone behind you. I have to figure out my world in the meantime. But I said, hey, what's the deal with that elephant? So do you mind telling the audience that story?
So if you don't know, I am a Black woman who happens to be an accounting professional. And so I have been in this industry for 30 plus years. And if you've seen pictures of me, you're like, that's impossible. You look 12. I actually started when I was in high school. So to tell the story about the elephant, there was this large conference that operated internationally as well as in the US. And when their speaker lineup came out overseas, we, as Twitter folks, got together, the tech Twitter community. We looked at it and said, hey, you're missing a lot of diversity in your speaker lineup. And they gave us the reasoning that they didn't have any women apply. They didn't have any people of color apply. They just didn't know where to find these speakers. So there were a couple of us, our accounting friends, Madeline Pratt, Megan Valero, and they got together and they put together this event in Boston when that organizer hosted an event there with the same looking speaker lineup. And I was happy that they asked me to participate as a panelist for a few of the sessions. But one of the things I thought of was like, hey, it would be cool if we had the elephant in the room, because as a Black woman in accounting, it is usually I'm the elephant in the room when we bring up diversity. It's always like a taboo topic, but this elephant sits on my bookshelf to remind me that it is okay for me to be my true, authentic self, to bring my full goodness to the world. And I shouldn't have to hide or code switch or be something that is not authentic to who I am. And it sits there just to gently say, it's okay. Be who you are and embrace it, because it's what makes us all special. It's what makes us unique. It's what makes the work that we do that much more enjoyable, because you get to be yourself while also crunching numbers. Who doesn't love to do that?
Yeah, and it's such an interesting and great story. We're talking a little bit pre-show, and I said, even think for many in and outside the profession, and I put myself in this bucket. We did a cloud accounting summit in 2020, Tax Twitter United. They said, David, every speaker looks like you. And I said, it was unconscious. We were trying to pull together something fast, and we pulled together a speaker list. And so we went out and we apologized publicly, and it was a misstep, and we were able to find folks. And I'm not trying to hurt myself trying to pat myself on the back here, but it was very easy to not realize that you weren't living up, or we weren't living up to the ideals that we wanted to prescribe to as a company. And I think there's a really easy trap that folks can get into, which is, oh, you didn't have any apply. And people can say this for conferences, but I think even more often it's for their pipeline, right? You're like, "Oh, we would love to have more diversity in our firm, but we're having a really hard time. We're having a hard time with pipeline. What's pipeline? We don't know what else to do." And I think there's all these kind of sayings that are easy excuses. They're easy outs that make you feel good, but and I'm not saying it's easy to go out and figure it out, but I just feel like they're common excuses that come up.
Yeah, you just have to be intentional about it. And even I, being Black and looking at my friend group and who I pull from for speakers, I have to be intentional to include people that don't look like me. Age is a big ism that we tend to ignore. We lean heavy on, we need to bring young people to the industry. But why are we not also embracing our, what I call my seasoned members? We can go color, but we can also go sex, we can go nationality, we can go race, we can go age, we can go disabled members. Like that's a topic that I'm trying to immerse myself in more and more, because there are these invisible disabilities that we can't even imagine other people on the other side of the Zoom screen are going through. So it's one of the reasons why we try to close caption all of our events. I had a few people reach out to me, and I am deaf. So if your sessions aren't closed captions, I can't partake. And I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. And so now we're intentional about it. Even in my practice or in my family, one of my aunts is completely blind. The way she navigates the computer just made me say, oh, I need to do better with my website. So all of our blogs have a verbal component where there's a AI bot that will read the blog post to them. But it was because of her that I had to think about these things, because like you said, it's easy not notice it until somebody points it out to you. But it is one of those things we have to be really intentional about, especially if it's one of your values or one of the core principles of how you're running your business. Be
Yeah.
intentional.
Yeah, there's even like as you bring it up, there's just a level of practicality that is so important. You can't open up any journal, blog, Twitter, anything, and they're like, the pipeline's terrible. No one's graduating with degrees. Like, where have all the graduates gone? They moved. They're TikTokers now. We can't find them. And then you're like, there's pockets of talent all across the country, all across North America that have essentially been ignored, that have been opted out either by the language of how you post things or the accessibility of your firm or the way you might advertise for, maybe you don't use the word young, but you're like going after that talent. And so there's probably just many pools of amazing people out there that kind of opt themselves out when they don't feel like they belong at a firm.
I agree. I agree. It's even just simple images. If you do an audit of your website, what are we seeing when we look there? We see a bunch of stock photos. And are these stock photos reflective of your people or the people you're trying to attract? Just doing that to show that you're a welcomed workplace or a welcomed firm in terms of selecting clients. Because we talk about staffing, but this also goes for your client base too. Do you want to work with people that only look like you? Or do you want a diverse roster of clientele so that you can learn from them? Maybe they will sing your praises and find talent you didn't even know possible. But it all starts with what you're putting out there, whether it's the messaging from your words that come out of your mouth, videos, speaking engagements, or whether it's images on your website or blog posts that are being written. Are they speaking the people you're trying to attract's language?
Yeah, what I love about your suggestion is it's there's many forward steps you can take, but you will also don't need to have it perfect. Look at your stock photos. Start there, right? Like, look at photos. There's tools where you can look at the language you're using. You mentioned the accessibility plugin you have for your website. I imagine those are somewhat straightforward to add to a website. It just feels if you bring a level of intentionality about it, you're already ahead of a lot of folks.
Yes. And don't think you got to do it all in one day either. We like one simple start. Look at the pictures on the website, add a description to the picture, because like I reference my aunt a lot. just watching how she interacts on Facebook. Like she'll like a picture and I'm like, how are you liking this picture? You don't even know what it looks like. But then I'll hear Siri describing to her what's in that photo. A lot of those descriptions come from the alt captions that are on your website. So add a description: male in a blue suit, wearing glasses, laughing hysterically. That's what she would hear. So that's how she can enjoy that image. It's one of those things that it feels like, oh, it's a lot to do, but don't feel like you got to do it all in one day. Do one
Yeah.
page today, one page tomorrow, and then build from there. Be intentional after the fact.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be armchair psychologist, but I feel like I think one of the hardest things about this conversation is to just not show up with the giant feeling. I'll speak from a white male perspective of guilt. And so because of that, you put your head in the sand. And I'm going to be guessing on this one, but I remember a couple dozen episodes ago, we did one. There was a gentleman in the profession who was talking about critical race theory in accounting. Pretty controversial topic, probably one of the most controversial topics we've ever brought to the show. Remember, our head of marketing at the time was like, "All right, we're gonna hit publish." And I was like, "All right, here we go. Let's see what happens." And we explored the topic. It was crickets. Right? It was crickets. I'm like, "Wow, interesting. Okay." It was like, it's just we don't want to talk about it at all, or maybe people are here for more firm management than CRT. I don't know, but I think there's a real desire to just put your head in the sand because it's hard to know what are those steps. And so that's what I appreciate about your recommendation is you could just start having intentionality and take a step forward any way you can.
Yeah. That's crazy that you heard crickets. I remember.
I know, right? It was during the time where everybody was talking about it, and it was
Yeah.
like you couldn't open up a podcast or Twitter or X or whatever I'm supposed to call it now. You couldn't go anywhere. Yeah, by the way, earlier today I sent somebody a Twitter thread, and I was like, "Here's a tweet. I don't know. Here's an X. I don't know what to say anymore. I'm still learning. I'm still learning." But yeah, and it could just be people come to listen to the podcast and they want kind of firm management principles, and that was a little bit not what they show up to learn, or it could just be like, I don't I don't really want to think about this topic right now.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's funny because you have some payroll company. Like I remember when Gusto put out an article about accounting and the diversity pipeline issue and how many Black accountants there were. And they weren't recreating this article. They were republishing some study from somebody else.
Oh, from
And
like
they
the 90s or something, or from like early 2000s? Is that what
This
you're?
was actually a couple of years ago.
Oh,
So
okay.
it
Okay.
was like a year or two ago. There were so many messages on that public forum about Gusto being woke. And it was just crazy to me because I was like, this isn't even their study. This study was done by somebody else. All they did was publish the findings on their blog. And y'all are attacking them and telling them they shouldn't be woke. It's the craziest things that just set people off. And there are people who are privately celebrating for you saying, I'm so glad you put that out there, but they're afraid to speak up too. So just know that you may have put that out there and it was crickets, but there's probably somebody in the background cheering you on, sharing it so that they can help educate and make it not such a taboo topic. But yeah, that I'm
Yes.
amazed by that. So that means good job. Because the hate mail is never welcomed. Never.
Yeah, it's amazing how you just try to show up and be human. Unfortunately, we've never had commenters come out and attack us or whatever, but you try to bring a level of humanity to a conversation and it could become weaponized, which is just unfortunate, right? And that kind of spooks everybody away from having that conversation again. But hopefully, the more we talk about it, slightly better it can become.
And
Um,
the other thing is our natural what am I trying to say? The people of this that are occupying our earth are going to naturally be more diverse. So in 2025, we're going to see the most diverse set of people on this planet than we've ever seen before, just because of couples having babies and they all being mixed race. And so it's a natural evolution. It's not something that is just we can bury our heads in the sand and it's going to go away. No, we're going to see it reflected in the world we live in. And so eventually accounting is going to catch up, which is going to always be fun.
Hey, Growing a Firm community, David here. Just want to share a quick note about Jetpack Workflow, our accounting workflow software. Now, for almost a decade, we've helped 5,000 plus accountants, bookkeepers, and firm owners use Jetpack Workflow to better organize accounting workflows, automate recurring tasks, and easily track and monitor client work. Never miss a deadline again. Stop using messy Post-it notes, generic tools, legacy systems, or spreadsheets to handle workflows and bring sanity to your client work. Now head on over to jetpackworkflow.com. That's jetpackworkflow.com to get started with a 14-day free trial or schedule a one-on-one demo with us. All right, now let's get back to the show. Yeah, the melting pot, right?
Yes.
The pot's always being stirred, right? It's always being stirred in America, which is cool. To talk about something else that folks will clearly talk about more, but it's also become a topic where people are like, I'd rather not talk about it. So we were talking a little bit before we're taping this, we're about to go into an extension deadline, and you're like, I don't burn the midnight oil. I'm like, that's not, people wear that. That's a badge of pride. I'm grinding it out. I'm doing, especially as a firm owner, especially in some entrepreneurial circles, like I'm going to grind it out 10 p.m., 11 p.m. I'm going to do it. And this is how it's supposed to be done. And you're like, I don't burn the midnight oil. Why? How? Let's unpack what that means.
No. So midnight oil is not my jam. Even though it's so funny, I am a night owl versus a morning person. And I actually prefer to work in the evenings versus getting up early in the morning to work. But I am a big fan of setting boundaries. And so I often say other people's emergency does not constitute an emergency for me. So we have these tax deadlines, and these are not new deadlines. They are the same old ones that's been in existence in my 45 years on this earth.
They're not a surprise. They're
not a surprise. So if our clients know these are grown people who have worked a job, had a business for years now, this is not their first rodeo, why are we acting as if them, quote unquote, forgetting now constitutes that we have to penalize ourselves by sacrificing time with our families or doing all the things we love to do or not love to do, go to the gym, because somebody, quote unquote, forgot a tax deadline. It just doesn't, it never made sense to me. It's never been a badge of honor for me anyway to work. I can't walk around proudly saying, I worked 60 hours this week. I don't want to work 60 hours. I'd rather work smarter versus harder or longer. Plus, there's studies that prove that your brain is shut down. You're really doing yourself and your clients a disservice if you are trying to push through. It's only so much work we can do. So why are we trying to force ourselves to do more than what our brains are capable of? And so
what mechanisms have you set up to still run a successful firm, though? Is it communicating to clients, hey, if you don't get it to me by this date, it's not happening? Or have you, what are all the kind of rules, principles, or tools you've used to say, hey, it's 40 hours a week, no more?
So first thing we did was set the boundary up front. So we express to our clients what our office hours are and that we work within these time frames. We also set the expectation of when they can expect their return. So we tell clients there is a 3 to 4 week turnaround. If we get it to you sooner, that's great. If it's going to be later than that, we will let you know based off of if there's any additional things that pop up, because some stuff pops up. And so our clients have this expectation from the onset, it's going to take us at least 3 weeks. So if we're not getting things that she needs to us before 3 weeks, it more than likely isn't going to happen. 2, if it's early in the year, we're coming up in April, March, we're going to file an extension. Extensions are good. They're not a bad thing. So we need to get in the habit of teaching our clients that extensions are not a bad thing. It actually makes it better for you because I can then actually critically think about how to process this tax return in the best possible way, especially if you had some new scenario come up and you might have this unexpected tax bill. Is there any way we can try to figure out how to minimize that? But I can't do it under pressure. If I got 2 days left to the deadline and I'm just trying to crank your return out, you won't get that best thinking now. You'll get the stress, sign this thing, pay this fee, get you out the door, Nayo. And I don't want to be that person because my clients suffer for it. Setting those expectations up front, that communication policy, the timeline, clear time and deadlines. And then third, really sticking to them. So if I'm working on the weekends, I will schedule the email for Monday during our working hours. My clients won't know that I'm working on the weekend. And if I'm working on the weekend, it's my choice, not by force. Because, so I'll use the example, my wedding anniversary is September the 15th. So there is no September 15th deadline for me. I more than likely will not be working on that day because I'm spending time with my husband, who I love very dearly, right? So, I might work the Saturday beforehand just to allow that extra time because I know I'm going to be off on the 15th. But again, I'll schedule an email so that it hits on Monday morning during our working hours. And I communicate to our clients in advance. Nayo will not be in the office on September 15th. So if you email and you're trying to get something done, it more than likely will not happen. So I'm clear about when I'll be in and out of the office so that they know. And if there's anything I'm waiting for from them, I tell them that these are the things I need. I'm not going to hound them. I might send one or two reminders, but I am dealing with grown people who have to have some consequences for their actions. So if they neglect to respond to me, I shouldn't go into anxiety or panic mode because they didn't follow up on something they are responsible for. My taxes were done first this year. I'm in the habit now of I have to put my mask on first. How can I tell my clients, you all need to pay attention to your taxes if I'm the last person to file my tax return last? That doesn't make any sense.
And two quick things. So when you're doing work on the weekends, you're waiting till Monday to email the clients. Is that same for your staff too? Like you do internal, external, everything waits till Monday?
Yeah. And sometimes I'll send a message to the team and it could be, hey, expect this on Monday morning, but I don't expect them to respond. I tell them, put on your do not disturb so
Yeah.
that I'm not disturbing you. Just because my random thoughts are coming at midnight or 10 p.m. doesn't mean that they are now your emergency. They're not. They are for Monday morning. I just need to put it here while I was thinking about it.
No, I feel like when firm owners, they're earlier in their journey, they're like, that feels so aspirational. Oh, I'd love to say no, but I need the cash. I need the money. I have a mortgage. Daycare's expensive. Food's expensive, so on and so forth. Was there a moment in time, either firm scale or revenue threshold, was there a specific moment you're like, I'm not doing that anymore? What was the turning point for you? And was it related to like the revenue base and the quantity of clients that you were serving?
It wasn't either of those things. It was when a client demanded my time. And that was like a stop and pause moment for me because I could get money. What I can't get back is my time. So if I have this client who is just like demanding I stop what I'm doing to interact with them, and it's because they neglected to do something, I had to take a hard look and say, wait a minute. One, why did this client think that was okay? It is a Friday at 7 p.m. Why does this client think that I'm supposed to stop what I'm doing to talk to them? And I really had to put the things in place so that my clients would really understand, hey, she's not talking to me Friday at 7 p.m. And I shouldn't expect her to. I shouldn't yell in her voicemail. I shouldn't email 15 times and say
Yeah.
this is an emergency because it more than likely is not. So I realized in that moment, I had to do something because I was feeling a little guilty about not being available for this client, but I was also in the middle of spending time with my family, eating dinner. So I'm like, wait a minute, these two things are out of alignment here. I got into business for the freedom and flexibility of it, but now I'm feeling constrained by it. No, we need to adjust. And so that tax season, that's when I was still solo. I sat down and I wrote out every single piece of the process for the tax prep process from the initial contact to end delivery. And I figured out what pieces of this puzzle needed my attention, somebody else's attention, or that we could eliminate altogether. Was there anything in this puzzle that I could automate and streamline? How could we do things a little bit better so that I was using my brain power on the things that were my brain actually lit up about. And I realized from that initial process mapping that phone calls were zapping all of my energy and time. And so I hired an answering service. So to this day, I don't answer my own phone. The answering service will take a message. If it's a new client, it'll tell them how to schedule. We use that scheduling moment as a test to see if this client is tech savvy, because if they cannot follow the precise instructions on how to find a booking link, you're not my people. And then how they fill out the form, I use that as a test as well to see how well they're going to communicate what their issue is or their needs are. And then we still are doing a free consultation, 15 minutes, but I like to see how fast they can get out what their needs are in that 15 minutes. If they show up late, you don't respect my time. If you do show up late and you're apologetic, I get it. If show up and you are like distracted, you're driving, you're at the gym, you don't value my time. We probably won't be a good fit. But those people that show up and they talk to me and I can sense that we can meet their needs, I love working with those people. We walk them through what that process is going to look like. We spell out what the three things are that they need to do in order to work with us initially, pay their deposit, fill out this form, and what they can expect. So they know walking in, if I fill out this form, we have to follow these rules because she spelled it out on the call. And then now we're adding for tax prep, we have this for our accounting practice, a communication document that spells out everything we just went over in this call again in a physical place, so that if we need to say, hey, remember, we told you about these things, it's now here. You got this welcome document that told you all the things. Here's our communication policy. Here's the expected timeline.
I love it. I love it. There's what I wrote down, I keep coming back to with all the examples you're giving and how you're thinking about it, is you teach people how to treat you. And that goes for clients. I think it's just exceptional how you've outlined the expectations for the relationship. I have a final question for you, and then we'll chat a little bit more about how folks can get connected with you. They're involved, whether it's on Twitter or X. Is it X Twitter now? Text Twitter? Is it text?
I don't even know. It's crazy. I'll be the first to admit I still have not updated the app so I can keep my little blue Twitter. I don't want that X on my phone.
I see a little bookshelf behind you. Maybe it's a book on there. Maybe it's some other book. What's been the most impactful book that you've read in your journey as a firm owner?
I'm reading a book now that it's like hitting some points for me that I needed in this particular moment. It's called Buy Back Your Time. I forget who the author is.
Dan Martell.
Yes. And he's just defined a few things for me. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like the last thing I read was the definition of done. I just have a team member who I'll give stuff to. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, she knows I'll need this by this time. But I put into practice this definition of done now. And it really clicked for both me and her of how to get stuff done when I need it and how I need it. So for those of you who don't understand what that means, is a task is complete when blank happens and the person feels this way and whatever else is needed to be wrapped up in that. For example, if I wanted my admin to buy me a whiteboard, that task is complete when the whiteboard is hanging in my office with 4 colored markers, black, blue, green, and red. And so it's a simple framing of this task is now complete. And the person who you've assigned the task to really understands I've done my job. And it was just like so miraculous that it was like, this is a light bulb moment. Why didn't I think of this sooner? But putting the words to it just really helped solidify this feedback loop that we were already building. And so it's clicking. That was like the one thing that clicked the most for me. But I'm in the middle of the book now, so I'm loving it so far.
I know Dan was an advisor to the company, and it's interesting. We did a pod with him right around when the book came out, and I heard, we haven't even released it yet, but we did a podcast a couple of weeks ago with Tyler Wynn from Wynn Payroll. And it was either right in the show, right after the show. I said, hey, what are you reading? What's good? And he goes, you know what? Got this book. I just hired an assistant. I made a mistake hiring assistant. Then I read the Buy Back Your Time book. And then I hired an assistant again. And it actually is working now because I'm using the principles from the book. So shout out to Dan. We'll link it up. We'll link up the book. Nayo, if somebody wants to reach out, say thank you for coming on, learn more about what you're up to, what's the best place for them to connect with you?
I hang a lot out on Twitter. I am trying to play a whole lot more on LinkedIn. Both you can find me at Nayo Carter-Gray, NayoCarterGray, because I know there are people who spell gray with an E.
Got it. We'll link up Twitter. We'll link up LinkedIn. We'll drop the summit that you do as well. People can take a look at that, but probably the best place to connect with you is social. If you enjoyed today's episode, check it out at jetpackworkflow.com/blog. We'll do a full write-up. We'll list out all the links. We'll list out the summary, the principles, everything Nayo talked about. If you enjoyed today's interview, leave a review. It helps us get the word out. And if Nayo said something that just was a light bulb moment for you, share it with a fellow firm owner that needed to hear this. It's a great way to say thank you to Nayo for coming on. Nayo, I look forward to interview number 3, 4, 5. I don't know what we're up to. Until we meet again. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining Growing Your Firm, the podcast series for global, small, and medium-sized businesses ready to scale and increase profits. You can check out more podcasts by following the links in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. At Jetpack Workflow, we're all about maximizing returns for accounting firms and CPAs. Check out more podcasts on growing your firm and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.